My dear friends, I recently read in the Wall Street Journal that at a meeting in the WHO headquarters in February 2018, a group of scientists debated which of the world's most frightening epidemic diseases deserve the greatest attention. Ebola, a killer disease that drains its victims of bodily fluids, made the list. So did Nipah, which makes the brain swell before most of its victims die. As did SARS, which affects the lungs and leaves the sick gasping for air. At the end of the two-day gathering, the group topped the list with the most terrifying entry of all. They called it Disease X. It was meant to capture what scientists had warned about for decades, an unknown pathogen with no known treatment or cure that would likely originate in animals, jump to humans, and start spreading silently and quickly. Scientists couldn't predict the precise genetic makeup of the pathogen or when or where it would strike. But they knew it would come and even picked locations where such a virus might originate. They had ideas about how it might begin infecting people and how easily transmissible it could be. They even had plans for how to detect and stop it. But when the disease did come in the form of COVID-19, it caught governments, businesses, public health officials, and citizens completely flat-footed. They soon found themselves battling an invisible enemy with few resources and little understanding. Over 28.5 million have been infected and nearly 1 million have died. The equivalent of 400 million jobs have been lost worldwide, 13 million in the US alone. Global output is on track to fall 5% this year, far worse than during the financial crisis, according to the IMF. But I must warn you that based on research in 84 countries, an MIT report states that things can actually get worse. Frightening thought. Finding a vaccine is the only answer. Politicians, of course, around the world say that a vaccine is imminent and inevitable. This may give people unrealistic beliefs about how soon the world can return to normal. But I would suggest, and I have warned the folks at Evanston, that we not get our hopes up too soon, for if you think that immediately after the vaccine is found, it's the typical Hollywood ending where everyone lived happily ever after, you are wrong. The painful truth is that we are not returning to a pre-COVID-19 world, and that recovery is a long way off, and at that, not likely to be smooth. The bigger issue is that countries that manufacture vaccines, and wealthy ones that do not, are already competing to lock in early access. It would have been better for the whole world if there was an international, enforceable commitment to distribute vaccines globally in an equitable and rational way. Rotary would have a major role to play in such a situation. If this was not enough, in your case, you are besieged with serious issues called by the wildfires in the West, hurricanes in the Atlantic and on the Gulf, floods hampering agriculture in the Midwest, even as droughts and heat waves have grown longer and more common across the Southwest. The recent addition we made to our areas of focus by including the environment will allow us to focus in a small way to alleviate some of these issues which are caused by climate degradation. Nonetheless, this is the world in which Rotary has to operate, and we cannot simply wish it away and hope things were different. The Foundation's own response to COVID was swift and impactful. We awarded 210 COVID-specific disaster response grants for $5.2 million. And we awarded 260 COVID global grants for approximately $14.2 million, making a total outflow of nearly $21 million in a matter of weeks. Many grants were processed and awarded in days. Staff did a fabulous job. In fact, world over, I must say, the philanthropic response to the COVID-19 pandemic has been phenomenal, and at least $10.3 billion has been donated globally by May 2020. On the one hand, it augurs well for Rotary, which relies on philanthropy-minded people and entities to raise its funds. On the other hand, the virus has also affected Rotarians, and therefore Rotary itself faces unprecedented challenges. Many Rotarians have lost their jobs. Some have even succumbed to the virus, many friends of ours. In fact, as I said, I lost my closest two friends in India, and another was past RI President Louis G.I. Many others have been subjected to having their incomes slashed. Many businesses of Rotarians have seen substantial drop in revenues, and some are struggling to meet their recurring costs. In this situation, the two factors Rotary International and Rotary Foundation depends on most for survival are at stake. I am referring on the one hand to membership, and on the other hand, contributions to the foundation. And in the normal circumstances, both these could and must suffer. But Rotarians are not normal people. Indeed, history shows that Rotarians are a curious breed. Rotarians in general are visionaries, an idealistic lot that dream big and dream of a better world. At the same time, we are resilient and able to withstand challenges that others might succumb to. For example, in 1919, when the Spanish flu hit us, just after the World War I, membership actually increased by 19%. In 1921, when the recession struck the world, membership increased by 26%. In 1957, when the Asian flu hit us, membership increased by 3%. In 2009, when the swine flu hit a great part of the world, there was actually zero increase. But annual giving to the foundation went up 20%. However, there is no gainsaying that the trustees of our foundation do have an onerous responsibility of steering our foundation at this most challenging of times. Leadership matters most and is most challenged when people face independent threats, when customary ways of working are no longer possible, and when confusion and anxiety overflow. During a crisis, leaders must make tough choices so that their organization can survive in the short term and thrive in the long term. And one of the tough decisions we made with great unhappiness was to eliminate, for the moment, the 50% match to cash for next year. The problem is that our global grants have become so popular that we have now become victims of our own success. For example, 2013-14, there were 868 grants at a total value of $47 million. In 2018-19, there were 1,403 grants at a total value of $86 million. So while contributions increased by 10%, global grants increased by 80%. We have reached the point that annual contributions are just not keeping pace with demand for global grants. Not surprising, since nearly 20% of our clubs do not contribute to our annual fund, an unacceptable situation. You are one of the star regions of the world. You have the vision to see what others cannot. The problems, the potential, the promise, and the purpose. Apart from annual fund, which drives our World Fund, you are the ones who can see that we have to raise enough money for polio and be able to take advantage of the Gates match. I mean, it makes business sense when $1 is matched by another $1 from the World Fund, and that $2 is doubled by Gates to make a total of $6. And speaking of polio, you are the ones who can equally play a significant role in the distribution of the COVID vaccines if we can make such an arrangement, and we must. After all, we are better equipped than anyone else to do so, thanks to our polio experience. In fact, I must tell you that the polio infrastructure Rotary helped build is being used to help prevent the spread of the COVID-19 by supporting preparedness and response activities in many countries, just as the Global Polio Eradication Initiative did in the past to respond to outbreaks of Ebola, yellow fever, avian flu. In many places like Nigeria, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, polio staff are tracing contacts and testing for COVID-19, combating misinformation, and sensitizing health professionals on the disease. So you see, the nature of the business we do has not changed. We are still reaching out to people in distress, except that our methodology by which we do it needs to change. Our process of preparing and delivering the projects needs to change. The way we communicate what we do needs to change. Public health emergencies like the coronavirus can bring out the worst in people, but it can also provide inspiring examples of people choosing to be kind. We want to belong to the second type. Situations like this also reveals the most unlikely heroes even in Rotary. I watch 4 or 5 stations on TV every morning when I'm in the gym. One of them is CNN, the Indian one, NDTV, BBC, Bloomberg, and one of the Middle Eastern ones. I was surprised one day when I was watching NDTV, the Indian station, when the announcer suddenly talks about the issues in Mumbai, the number of deaths, lack of crematoriums, and then says, thank God these people from Rotary came, Muslims and Hindus working together, and they never normally do that, working together, lifting bodies and putting them into the crematorium, makeshift crematorium. And I was amazed. I mean, it's something I would never have thought of doing. I'm making speeches, but here are people right down there at the crematorium working together. You see, there lies in each Rotarian a passion that only needs to be awakened. All great achievers in Rotary have this passion. And even in these difficult days, this is the type of visionaries we need to harness. This is the passion that we seek to awaken. Sure, all our ideas may not work, but our passion will have a tremendous impact. I want to give you an example. Back home in my country, 2 of my close Rotary friends, Abbas and Ajay, were over a drink talking of the situation in our country of children with mental health issues. You see, 20% of Sri Lankan children were affected by disabilities. 1 in 93 have been diagnosed as autistic. As in other developing countries, cerebral palsy affects 2 to 5% of our children. In a situation like this, we could only shrug our shoulders and criticize the government. We are very good at criticizing our government for not doing anything about it. But the passion that we were generating got the better of us. We could visualize a properly equipped center to treat children with such disabilities. So the right people were spoken to, and they became partners to the project. The University of Colombo made available the land. The Sri Lanka Army built the premises in 13 months, and we had 2 major cash infusions of $1 million each from the companies of my friends Abbas and Ajay. Rotary made available equipment from the Rotary Foundation global grants totaling about $350,000. But building and equipping was easy. Sustainability was the key in the long term. A deal was negotiated with the Faculty of Medicine of the university that they would absorb all the operational and maintenance costs. They would provide trained professionals in the field of disability studies and take care of initial screening interventions altogether. In turn, they got a $5 million, 42,000 square feet center of absolute world class. A complex to operate from, a complex that would equal anything you have in your country. The center already has registered outdoor patients, children, nationwide numbering over 5,000. All of them provided with services free of charge. It's a remarkable project, the type of project that our new programs of scale launched this year would deal with. So I ask you to be hopeful. And don't forget, we will be measured on our ability to handle the current adversity and uncertainty. I know it's easy to say. I know it's going to be a challenge. But remember, viruses are not new. The plus point from this one is that when the next one arrives, we will surely respond better than what we did in 2020. Rotary itself will be better prepared to handle such a calamity. In fact, we have already learned a lot, and amongst all the service organizations, we have handled the situation much better at World Headquarters. So this is the reality now, and we will face up to it. But as someone said, what use is our worry right now? Worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but never gets you anywhere. You know, a Persian king once called his wise men and asked for a coat that would make him happy when he was sad and make him sad when he was happy. When they told him the coat, he was so impressed that he had it inscribed on his ring. The coat was very simple. It said 4 words, "This too shall pass." This too, my friends, shall pass. We have gone through similar crises before, and we have come out of it. I'm sure we also will in time with this one. A couple of months back, in only her 5th address to the nation, in her long 69-year reign as monarch, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II closed her remarks with the eponymous line from Vera Lynn, who just died recently at the age of 101, from Vera Lynn's best-known song, "We'll Meet Again." We should take comfort that whilst we may have more still to endure, better days will return. We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. And we will meet again in person, either in your home or mine. Thank you.